Well, we're starting then. Today is October the 25th.
Fifth?
Yes.
25th, 2022. We call this, Michael Lange, what is it? AC, after COVID. It's hard to know the dates after COVID.
AC already happened. They should do AD, AC.
Well, there's
Isn't that
BC.
a thing? BC.
Before
Oh,
COVID.
AC is.
Before COVID, yeah.
And then DC is during COVID. So even the time is difficult for me to start out with. Before we get into our very special guest to be named in a second, let's just review a little bit. Let's take a second to review.
What about our intro?
Oh, is there?
What
that's right.
number are we on?
Hey,
What are we doing right now?
okay, let's start.
Cut.
Hey, hello, my name is Jeremy. I'm with the Mama Tried Flat Out Friday weekly podcast. And then you play the song. And it goes like
Eye of
this.
the
I wrote
Tiger?
some words. Motorcycles are pretty cool, but the people are better. How's that?
I'll use that.
Okay.
Set to an Emerson, Lake and Palmer soundtrack.
And it's about 45 minutes long.
One song.
Okay, my name is Jeremy. This is the weekly Mama Tried Flat Out Friday podcast. Before we introduce our special guest and my other co-hosts here, let's just take a second to talk about where we're at in the timeline of what we do. Did you know, Warren, that this weekend we're going to Philadelphia?
I did. Yeah.
Scott, why are we going to Philadelphia?
We're going to Cameron Smith's Halloween party
Mm-hmm.
in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, Coatesville.
Coatesville. I, for some reason, have it stuck in my head that one time he told us that he lived in Kentucky, which is close.
I thought so. I do know that Coatesville is just north of Pantsville.
Now, before we go any further, this is a Halloween party, right?
Yeah,
Scott, what will you be wearing as your costume? Are you going to be Debbie Downer and not wear anything?
I forgot that it was Halloween. I don't know how I was able
Convenient.
to forget that it was Halloween. For the record,
Didn't you make the poster? No, that was
no,
prop.
I didn't make it. But I'm a Halloween avoider.
Well, I will not be a Debbie Downer, and I will be wearing nothing. So, so that'll pick things up.
All right.
So we're going to Philly this weekend at Coatesville. That should be fun. And the Phillies are in the World Series. I'm looking forward to the energy of being in Philadelphia.
Well, also it's Cameron Smith's Halloween party at his house.
It's actually his birthday party.
Birthday party.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a mini bike race.
Mm-hmm.
And how did this whole thing even?
We connected. We spent some time in Sturgis. We hooked up with Chicken Fried Rick, who was not in Sturgis. Was
No,
he
he's in Jersey.
But we started this conversation in Sturgis.
In Sturgis.
Yes.
With Chicken Rick. Do you know Chicken Rick, Mike?
No, you didn't start the conversation in Sturgis with Rick.
I
It started with Cameron.
Cameron.
Okay.
And
The details. Let's zoom out a little bit. The point is, we have a three-way going. Chicken Rick, fried choppers, Chicken
Fried Rick.
Chicken Fried Rick.
Matt Stout,
Stout Boonies.
and ourselves and Cameron Smith. So a four-way. And we decided to just kind of put this fun together out in Philly. Okay. More of everything. It's all over social media and for details. We also, I've been getting bombarded. Maybe you guys are too. On when sign up open. How do I put my motorcycle in the Mama Tried show? When are tickets on sale?
Yeah, we got a lot of people emailing us about bikes and invites and whatnot.
Yeah.
Traditionally, Flat Out Friday generally is at the banquet here in Wisconsin, the District 16 banquet. Around mid-February is when we are fully released. I think we're actually going to be ahead of schedule, and within the next week or two, we will have all that information.
Mid-February.
Mid-November.
Mid-November.
See the basic details of time. The basic details of time.
I was like, they moved the banquet back to February?
No, it's November. I'm sorry. Mid-February, we will be ready. We were traditionally ready. We will be ready earlier this year, or Flat Out Friday will. Mama Tried will be ready within a stroke of a key.
Yeah,
Right.
we're ready.
We're ready. We have so many cool bikes that have been submitted this year. It's going to be really tough to put a list together.
Well, we have a bunch of people that we've already committed to. We need to get them their invites and get their pictures rolling and start posting. But
Yeah.
we need to put up the dates, and and the plan.
And it's happening.
Yeah, February 17th, 18th, 19th.
We didn't want to put it out before Born Free Texas.
Yeah.
Born Free Texas is a big deal. It looked like it was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
I talked to Ed Suvius. He said it was great.
Mm-hmm.
We went out there.
Looked
He had a great time.
How could you not have a great time?
Yeah.
You got to be kind of an asshole to not have a great time at Born Free.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, let's bring it full circle. I don't want to let our guest here sitting anytime with our interior banter. Mike Lange is here, ladies and gentlemen. If you guys could please stand up. There's Michael Lange, ladies and gentlemen. Is there a Sir? Is it Sir Michael Lange?
No.
If we had something like that, I think Mike would be had been knighted already.
Yeah. There's plenty of time to talk about motorcycles, Michael Lange. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where do you live right now?
In the town of Waukesha.
Where'd you grow up?
About 4 miles from there. In New Berlin, Wisconsin. In the 60s.
You grew up in the
Early
60s. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good time.
The 60s were a good
It
time.
was kind of lawless.
I heard.
Yeah.
All right, so you grew up there. You mom and dad, brothers and sisters.
I got one sister. I got a mom and dad.
Okay, that's crazy.
Yeah. They didn't. That didn't pan out. So early on, I was raised by my mom. Then.
Okay, and you went to high school in Waukesha.
No, in New Berlin, Eisenhower.
Mm-hmm.
Barely graduated.
But you had a really good experience in shop class, or how did you start getting into bikes? But you built a bike in shop class. Didn't you,
Yeah, I
in high
did.
school?
But people. I mean, I've been getting out more lately, and a lot of people have asked me, when had I decided to get into motorcycles, and it was never a decision. It just wasn't. I can't explain it any other way. It was born in me. It was born, in my blood, because from the youngest age, I would go out to the main road, Racine Avenue, and sit there and wait for motorcycles to go by.
Really?
Yeah, and it was
A calling.
yes, a calling, and I tore anything that had an internal combustion engine apart. Very, very young, 6 years old, and tear it apart, put it back together. I had parts left over, but they never ran to begin with, so it really. But it taught me what made things happen in an internal combustion engine, and I've been driven ever since.
You had a skill set, or uncles, your father, was there a background noise pushing you to feel this?
No, none. My dad was a machine builder. Always I'd help him work on his truck, pickup trucks and stuff like that. But there was no motorcycles at all in our family growing up. It was pretty rural back then, and there wasn't a lot of money either.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Were your parents like despise you getting into bikes, or was it cool? Like they supported you all the way through?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, by the time I got to the age of, thinking about starting to get a vehicle, everyone else in my neighborhood was allowed to get a car. I was not allowed to get a car. I was explicitly told that I could have a motorcycle, not a car. and
That's unique.
yeah, all the other kids are like, "You're not getting a motorcycle," and that's all I could have.
Wild.
It had to do with being turning 16 years old, a male in the household, and my mom didn't want to pay higher insurance rates, so she beat up the insurance man, and he didn't raise the rates.
No, she tried.
Your first motorcycle?
1948 UL Flathead.
And you were what? You were 15, 16?
15 years old. No, my first one was a 1938 WLDR chopper. And I had that just for a summer. I was 14 years old.
You bought it? You made it?
I got it in a trade, and I had that just for the summer when I was 14, and got rid of that to help save money for the 48 UL, which I didn't even know.
What do you mean
existed.
trade? 14 years old, you're already doing trades?
Yeah, what did they
Yeah.
trade back then?
Well, I
Was
had
that
a
a
couple
baseball
guns.
cards with guns?
No, it had
Sure.
some guns and stuff like that.
Of course you did.
Cool, yeah.
Yeah.
It's guns and motorcycles, sure. 14, I was
Yeah.
trading bubble gum and fucking football cards.
No, I actually I had some guns from my grandparents, and then I think at 12 years old I was enrolled in the NRA gun safety course, and actually started to shoot in competition, like at the Sentinel Sports Show, and to think about that today,
Sure.
here back then we're walking around with loaded 22s and shooting in the basement of the arena.
in
Sure.
a festival, like in an indoor.
Yeah. Yeah, the Milwaukee,
sports.
Milwaukee sports show was held at the arena,
Every spring.
and we shot in the basement,
Mm-hmm.
and and that was a funny story in itself because that morning of the Sentinel Sports Show and my competition, I was riding my mini bike that I still have today, and it was in February or early March, and there was a little bit of snow on the ground on the road where the snowplow plowed, and there was like packed snow spots and then clear pea gravel. And of course I had to make a speed run that morning, and I'm holding it wide open, and I modified the engine by then, and hit one of these slick patches, and the rear wheel started spinning way faster, and I got it sideways, and I saw the dry pea gravel patch coming, and as soon as I hit that, I high-sided and flew through the air, and when I came down, my hip bone actually came through my meat, and so I went home, and my sister called my mom at work and made me soak in the bathtub and put some Band-Aids on it, and I went and shot in
So nothing was
competition.
broken, you were ultimately okay.
I was really sore.
Sure. That'll happen when you
Yeah.
Yeah.
order meat and you
So long story short, you've been Hellraiser. You've been a Hellraiser.
I never listened. If somebody told me to do something, I did the
You
opposite.
sound like my son, Henry.
Yeah.
It's coming.
Well, yeah. It's
You got pictures of that chopper that you?
yeah, I do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah. Doing a wheelie on it. And,
Really?
Yeah. That's when I wore white T-shirts. It's the only time in my life when I
When'd
wore
you
white.
make? When'd you make the switch?
Yeah.
I don't know. In high school. Went black, never went back.
The speaking of high school, the chopper,
Yeah.
Scott was alluding to you building it in shop
class.
class, or
Yeah.
what about how'd you get it? You procured it like somebody gave you a loan or something?
Well, being 15, I couldn't buy it because I was underage. So John Height, because I had ridden that same mini bike past his shop in New Berlin on National Avenue, and I would see Harleys sitting out there and a couple drag bikes every now and then. And I finally got up enough nerve to stop in there, and I started helping John Height, who was a privateer drag racer, traveled the country, and
What was the name of the shop?
Heights Harley Davidson. and he later became a Harley dealer up in Fond du Lac, and in the late 70s, early 80s. But John would take me to Union Grove and test and tune, and I would drive his Chevy window van. I think it was about a 1960 or 61 Chevy van with a 4-speed on the tree, and I was 13, and I would chase him down the drag strip, and then he would hang on to the side mirror, and I would pull him back to the pits. And you know, I helped him in his shop when Joe Stadler was building a dual engine drag bike, and I got pictures of that, and you know, I started to see this 74 UL flathead in the back, and we worked out a deal, and because I was only 15, he could sell to my mom. And I have all that paperwork. And as soon as I turned of legal age, then it got transferred into my name. But it was $650, and gave him $125 down, and then I'd give him like $12 a week. And then you give me a
You
new
were working?
balance.
You had a job, a side job?
Yeah, I was hanging out in this other garage that did major engine rebuilds and transmission rebuilds. And Dan would pay me in cash, and I rebuilt. He taught me how, walked me step by step. I rebuilt my first car engine when I was 12 years old. You know, tell me to take the valve cover off, and then.
So you cut your teeth outside of high school?
Yes.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Scott's detail of that is a little bit wrong. Right?
Well, yeah, a little bit. You know, by the time I got to high school, I wasn't doing anything I didn't know how to do already.
All right. But you had a shop teacher that supported you, or?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Well,
okay.
yeah,
That's
until I
kind of
started cutting the neck on the frame, and then he was like, "Oh, wait, no," and he says, "I need a note from your mom." All these notes from my mom, yeah, and
It's pretty cool that your mom's willing to write that.
and he said,
Michael
you know,
can cut the neck.
yeah, well, he said, in case you kill yourself, you know, I don't want your
On
mom
the
suing
street.
us.
Yeah.
And it was, you know, I mean, none of that would fly today, but, you know, back then it was just.
And you just recently got that bike back on the road, right? Like,
Yeah.
it sat in
With
hibernation.
your encouragement, you and little Chris and other guys are like, dude, you got to put that thing back together. And in DC during COVID, I thought, why not? You know, can't go anywhere.
But why was it taken apart?
Well, in 1978, I hit a car. Not fast, but it bent the front end. And I had other motorcycles at the time, bobbers, and I don't know. For whatever reason, I don't even know why, but I took it all apart and put it away in boxes. And it sat there for the next 43 years. So, you know, really when we moved like 8 years ago, and really that started, you know, handling all the parts again. You know, you start to get excited about it, and, you know, the frame, which was totally molded, was really a heavy frame. And little Chris helped me get it down from the rafters, and I remember when Warren came over one day, I had it kind of as a roller pieced together upstairs in my new shop, and I got a picture of him sitting on it. And
it was just cool to see it down from the rafters. You know?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I peeked my head up there a few times and looked at it.
yeah,
You know, and to see it come back and ride next to you and have it in the show, and pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool.
yeah, you know, and as I'm, you know, and the day after I graduated high school, after building it and having it, you know, it was before like World of Wheels. It was Ray Farner's car, van, and truck and motorcycle show at Mecca, and it was in there a couple of years.
Did you ride it? You graduated high school and rode it to California?
Yep, day after I graduated high school, I rode with me and my buddy. He was on I think a 66 Sportster XLCH, and we rode to California and back the day after we graduated.
Why? What were you in search of?
Who knows? Watched Easy Rider. I mean, we went to Brookfield Square in 1969 and the mall and watched Easy Rider. And again,
You're like, let's do that.
This is my goal in life.
Sleeping bags.
Sleeping bags. Just a tarp between the two bikes is how we. There was no tent, and we just had this little lean-to, I guess. And
where did you sleep? You just was it? You could just pull over on the side of the road then?
Yeah, we did that a few times. We did go to, campgrounds and stuff and picked up girls and got high with them, in our little boudoir there and until their parents found out, I mean...
Did you have to stay in contact with your parents or did you just ghost them?
No, I don't think I did. I mean, back then there was no cell phones.
Sure.
Long distance was a hassle.
Yeah, I wasn't writing no letters.
What was it like though? I mean, it's you doing a couple 100 miles a day, taking your time. Were you blasting?
What was it like? Well, logistically, what was it like, and how long did it take?
Yeah, we probably did at least a couple 100 miles a day because I remember, both of us. We could make about 70 miles max. And we had to hit a gas station, and so we did a few of those. And I wish I would have taken more pictures, but I have quite a few pictures from that California trip.
Do you have any issues or need to big issues or just a bunch of tiny stuff?
One of the biggest issues was rolling into Denver. My primary chain was getting fried, and I remember pulling up to this Harley dealer, and the whole front area of the Harley dealer was like a boardwalk, and I laid the bike over on its side and went and bought a primary chain.
Yeah.
And then the mechanics out back loaned me the tools, and I
Did you even bring tools? Or just the specialty stuff takes
yeah, some of the bigger, hammer and stuff. But, to whatever it took to get the, your primary off. We didn't have any big tools. We had basic stuff. And, did that out in the front of the Harley dealer. And then somewhere along the line, it was up in the Continental Divide in Wyoming. Pull into a gas station to get gas and go to take off again and go to push the clutch in, put it in gear and let the clutch out, and nothing happened. And every once in a while it wouldn't go into gear, so push it in again and put it into gear and nothing happened. Did it a third time, and then finally I looked back and I saw the chain spinning with the sprocket, and it's all the rivets had fallen out. So had to put the bike up on some milk crates and take the rear wheel out. And my buddy with the Sportster had to ride me on the back of his Sportster with this 16-inch rear wheel in my lap with the brake drum and the sprocket. We had to ride 15 miles on a dirt road that was open cattle country, open range. And so these cattle were dodging, and we get to this guy's farm, and he just arc welded the sprocket back on. And,
yeah, I've welded many sprockets on the road.
yeah, you got to do what you got to do, and then, finished our trip.
Have you seen the end of Easy Rider? It doesn't end well.
No, it doesn't, but...
So your problems are mechanical, not social.
Right.
So you didn't run into
there
any...
was some social. I mean, there was people that, I remember one gas station, they locked the doors. We filled up with gas, but they locked the doors and wouldn't let us in,
Really?
Yeah, so we just drove off,
You slide the money under the door. And
no, I figured,
fuck it.
Fuck it. They're not going to let us in. They're not getting their money. And we never got in trouble.
Crazy.
You know, I don't know what.
Did you get any
deal
hassle
was.
from the man?
You know, things are a little foggy back then.
I couldn't imagine why.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Well, so you went to L.A., San Francisco. Where did you go?
Just Northern California.
What year was this?
This was 1974.
Okay.
So did the north route.
Yeah.
You went through Denver, so you did
Went through
Nebraska.
went through Reno.
So you went through over the Rockies and then like Utah and
Yeah, through Estes Park and all the back roads. It was
Amazing.
incredible. You know, I mean, for a 17-year-old kid with $400 to his name.
Yeah.
You know, it was.
Did you run out of money
Yeah.
on the way there or on the way back?
Well, by the time we got there, things were getting kind of slim. So we decided we never did make it to the ocean because we figured we made it to Immigrant Gap, California, which was not far from Reno. And I remember that last night we had Coors beer, a 6-pack, stuck in the snowbank in the campground.
So it was
But it was
cold.
still in the 70s.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, well, we thought, we'd leave Wisconsin, in late May, June. It's kind of warm, and I had traded a Beatles album for my first leather jacket, and it had no lining in it and no zipper. And we get out into the Rockies, and there's 12 feet of snow yet. And I'm freezing, so I'm like, I used a bungee cord to keep my coat shut, had to buy gloves. 17-year-old kids, we don't think much.
Yeah.
But we survived. It was a great experience.
Oh yeah.
How long did it take to go out there and back?
I have no idea.
3 weeks?
Yeah, around there.
Yeah.
I think-
How'd you get money to come back?
Well, I started to see, I'm spending more than half of what I got, and we're not out there yet. So,
You just turned around when you knew you had to come back.
yeah, I had to beeline it kind of back home and just spend it on gas. I mean, one night I remember we stayed in some motel. I don't know why, but we rode the bikes inside the hotel room. And with my chopper, it was pretty long. So, hotel rooms back then were kind of tiny and pretty cheap. And
That's cool.
It's a good story.
Yeah.
You asked how long. You said it was still the 70s. It was still in the 70s when you were talking about the temperature. But I was thinking time. It was still in the 70s somewhere. It was
right, yeah. Well, it was warm here, but out there it wasn't. I mean, it was the other thing.
we knew it was before 1980.
Yeah, way before 1980.
All right, so you went to California after you graduated high school. You came home and did you get a job, a profession? Did you move out? How was it like back when you went to New Berlin?
Well, I worked in that same garage.
As a paid, or you were getting paid?
Yeah.
Paid well, working full time now?
Well, actually, I got a job in as a mechanic after. I still worked in that garage, Mill Valley Garage, and he was paying me. But then I eventually did get a job. There was a franchise called Midwest Tire here in the Milwaukee area, and then they got bought up by Whitlock.
Whitlock.
I remember where
I
that
haven't said that
Yeah.
in a long time.
Yeah.
Remember the little
Whitlock,
logo? It was like a little 1920s car. Was there?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was great.
So, anyways, I worked after school at Midwest Tire, and then by the time I came back, I really wasn't living at home anymore. I went there once in a while to get my laundry done and stuff like that.
Sure.
And,
Story as old as time.
yeah.
And you and so you moved out, and then you were working there for a number of years. You somewhere along the way you met your wife.
Well, I met her in 10th grade.
Whoa.
Whoa.
Yeah.
What did she think of these escapades?
I don't know.
Was she into it?
No, she didn't like the fact that I was going.
Did she like to ride on your chopper?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
She likes motorcycles.
yeah. Well, she wanted to help pay for it
Whoa.
in 10th grade, and I would pick her up. I would go to her house in the morning before school and pick her
Her
up.
mom and dad thought what of that?
They were okay with it.
Okay.
And then we would go to Calhoun Park and smoke a couple joints.
Okay, before school?
Yeah,
Oh
A
yeah.
couple?
yeah. And then it wasn't that good back
We've
then. Yeah. And then we would wait for the bus. And then on Beloit Road, we would wait for them to get maybe a half mile ahead of us. And then every morning we would catch up, go full blast on this flathead chopper.
So that was the bit. You wait for the bus. Like, the bus is here, put the joints out,
Yeah,
jump
yeah.
on the bike, and then
and
blow
then
past
we
it.
would just like blow past them, flipping everyone off, and
that's great.
yeah, it was just doing that every day and just living life.
That's cool.
You know, I didn't roll by anybody's rules, although I will say I was raised well with some good ethics,
Mm-hmm.
good work ethics, and good money ethics.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have the money, you don't need it, type of thing.
Right.
You know.
If you don't have the money to buy it. Then
Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
You know, and if you earn the money, you'll appreciate it more.
Right.
So
So from you're 18 when you get home from the trip to California
yeah,
to your 20s, you're still working. When do you shut off this job of the Midwest Tire and Whitlock, and you start to get a profession, if you will?
I shut that off around 1979 and got a job in a plastics company as a machinist, and that lasted not that long. No, actually, no, I'll take that back. I got that job in the plastics company from 1976 to 1980, and then I quit there and got a job at Handle Corporation in New Berlin as a machinist and ran the R&D prototype and did all the tool and die work in that company. And then in about 1992, I quit my job there and been self-employed ever since.
Okay.
And in the meantime, sorry,
Yeah, no, go ahead. I know
were you
you're
hustling?
please.
Were you hustling bikes like in that time when you had your job? When you-
Always.
Yeah. And so,
Yeah.
what was the motorcycle scene like then? Like, what were you buying and selling that was popular? What did people like? I mean, obviously, tastes come and go. But
A lot
I remember
of
trends.
panhead and knucklehead.
Yeah.
And never owned a shovelhead, things were, the whole motorcycle scene, it was rare in our group that we hung with and did all the bar hopping with and partying. There was only one guy that had a dresser.
Really?
Everyone else had shovelhead choppers, panhead choppers, or bobbers, or knuckleheads, or flatheads. There wasn't a ton of flatheads, but one of my buddies, one of the gang that we used to roll with, he's still in Milwaukee and he still has an 80-inch flathead. It's a bobber, and.
But they weren't that. There were a lot of them around, but they just weren't that popular to customize back then.
No, people are customizing their stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the bike that people wanted. People wanted mostly knuckles and pans.
Yeah. Well, people shied away from flatheads because I don't think they knew really what to think of them.
Mm-hmm.
And but a lot of panheads.
Okay.
A lot of panheads.
Were they just thought of as like more utility value? It was like a,
Like a tractor.
Yeah, exactly. Didn't have the romance.
Right.
And,
Right. I always loved them.
You loved them
I loved
because
them.
you seem like from the stories that I've heard from you, you always understood the cachet of those old bikes and even the really old stuff.
Yeah, I got my
Because people weren't really interested in that stuff, right, back then.
correct. I found my 1924 JD in 1976 after my car was stolen
Welcome to
during.
New Berlin.
Huh?
Welcome to New Berlin. Or
No,
welcome to
that was,
Waukesha.
we were living in West Dallas at that
Oh,
time.
welcome to West Dallas.
A couple blocks away from State Fair Park. And during State Fair Park, 5 cars got stolen in that area that evening. And so I was test driving a car, and there was a garage door open in an alley, and I saw this 1924 Harley sitting there and ended up with that. So.
Go ahead, Scott.
No, I was gonna say, well, could they be had for a song? And they were just really, they just.
Yeah, I got that for $1,200.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, in
And-
1980.
No, I got that in 1976.
Wow.
So were you the cool kid? Was your crew? You mentioned your gang, your crew you hung out with. Were you guys the cool kids?
Well, I was the go-to guy because everybody would bring their bikes to me to, their words, not mine. So they would just say, "Hey, Mike, touch my carburetor," because nobody knew how to dial in a Linkert, and now, I mean, it's rare to see Linkerts. Everyone has got I don't even know it, a Super E or what the hell they are.
Yeah.
Never touched one, so don't know anything about those things.
You said only one person in your crew had a dresser, so that tells me you guys were. The word outlaw isn't really appropriate in this situation, but you guys were out of the norm of what motorcycling
Well, we
was.
hung a lot around with the Milwaukee Outlaws a lot.
Okay.
And what was the vibe like then in the chopper world? Like,
It was pretty laid back. We did a lot of parties. We Masters MC up in the Ripon area, Fond du Lac area. Went to one of their big parties up there, and
a lot of people riding bikes. It was a very popular thing at the time.
Yeah.
Or
but you weren't looked upon favorably at all.
right.
It was like when Charlie Brown, when the dirt cloud is following you around kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
looked upon favorably by who? By the normal people that are
Yeah,
at the gas
society.
stations? By society, sure.
Yeah. I mean, we were spit at. We were run off the road.
Because the prejudice was what? That you were outlaws.
Outlaws.
You were-
Yeah.
You weren't conforming, and how dare
If you rode a Harley back then, you weren't looked upon favorably,
Wow.
unless you
Even
were
a
some
dresser.
clean cut,
Okay.
well dressed guy. One of the guys that helped out in that NRA gun safety program, he was a very clean cut father of 2 and lived in your nice house and neighborhood, and he had a full dress Harley, and you were probably accepted relatively well there, but if you had long hair or beard or looked a little shady and a chopper, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Tell me just a little bit about the music and the art of that time.
Yeah, and how that all converged. I remember you telling me a story one time. I think it was you telling me a story about like you guys went to ZMF.
Oh
It
yeah.
was like the precursor of WLPX. I know I'm like really,
You're
it's way we're getting deep here, but when FM stations were album rock oriented back then.
Yeah, well, WZMF were doing a billboard campaign, and they were kind of taking a spin off of the James Gang, the album cover,
Yeah.
James Gang Rides Again. So they were going to do ZMF Rides Again, and on a billboard, and so they invited our whole group up there, and there had to be. I still have the picture. I I don't know if they gave us an 8x10 or I don't know, somebody made 8x10s out of it, but they said they'd have beer for us, and so we
Sold.
yeah, and we rode up there, and there must have been 30 motorcycles, and we kind of set them up in a triangle, kind of like racking a set of
Pool balls,
pool
billiard
balls.
balls.
Yeah, billiards, and then all the disc jockeys, like Bob Reitman was sitting on my bike, and I don't know who, my buddy had a 52K model chopper, and that's still in the Milwaukee area. And, there was everything in between. There was shovel head choppers, there was pan head choppers, you name it. And, all the disc jockeys were on them, but then we were all standing in the background. And, so they did the photo shoot and everything, and, we drank up all the beer, and then we're kind of getting messed up, and we're pounding on the door, and wanting more beer and stuff like that. And my buddy finds his dead bird on the ground, and he was going to do the Black Sabbath with Ozzy Osbourne. He goes, "Here, watch this," and he bites the head off and spits it out, and then they lock the doors. They're just like, go away, and so we always get out of hand. We always got thrown out of campgrounds because we always took it to a level that wasn't acceptable. So we got kicked out of a lot of places. We weren't allowed to go to bars because back then a lot of bars had a dress code signs on their door. If you wore a black leather jacket or a chain wallet or any of that type of stuff, you weren't allowed.
Really?
Well, yeah, and then the 80s came along, and then the Harley buyback, and it started to become popular with the everyday Joe, and then they put open arms out.
Did you guys jump in them open arms?
Well, yeah, we went to. It's a bar. We went to. We went to it.
But what did that feel like when everything sort of changed?
In our minds, it was kind of sucked because not that you. It's like you paid your dues.
Mm-hmm.
You went through all the bad times of the shit that went down in the Milwaukee area with. When Roger Lyons died in police custody, and the police were out in riot gear for the funeral, and you could
Who
feel.
was Roger Lyons?
Roger Lyons was a Milwaukee outlaw.
Okay.
And he was arrested, and while in police custody, he died.
Really?
And there was big investigation and everything, and. We had our bikes. I had my chopper and my 1945 knucklehead set up with the Milwaukee Outlaws down at Mecca for the bike show, and there was Roger Lyons' bike with the Eternal Flame there and everything, and it was kind of a tense time in Milwaukee with the club and the people that associated with them.
The club was active, was big at the time, very visible?
Oh, yes. Yeah. And, prior to that funeral, we all met down on some property that was owned by somebody down in Oak Creek. And there was chapters coming in from all over the country. And it was kind of like a staging area, but there was FBI agents, taking pictures of everyone coming and going.
Wow.
And, you could just feel it in the air, but, once, so you felt like there was not a badge of honor, but you had felt some sense of you paid your dues in the whole scene.
You were an OG at that point.
Of going through the 60s, 70s, chopper scene in Milwaukee, and then by the 80s when all the doctors and lawyers and good guys jump on board, and it felt like it was they're just riding shirt tails, they didn't earn anything. They just wanted to be the weekend warrior, type of thing. So, and some of them were probably genuine, but, a lot of them just wanted
They wanted the image, but
they didn't live the lifestyle at all.
Sure, they weren't about that life.
Yeah. Yeah. They still went home to their wife and kids and suburban home and 9-to-5 job, that type of thing.
Hold on to that philosophy, because I think that's going to come back around. You mentioned on telling about your life in a linear form. You were self-employed. So what does that mean? You suddenly went self-employed in the mid '80s.
Well, I learned that I didn't work well with others. Wonder why? Yeah, I just never liked to be told what to do, and never really blended with the authority figures in my life of any shape or form. And I always had this vision of running my own business, whatever that looked like. And through the 80s, through the real late 80s, I started to get, after I got that 1924 Harley, I really got heavy into antique motorcycles. And then I started racing, I'd been racing my mini bikes, and dirt bikes.
Anything sanctioned?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Was there a sanctioning body for your mini bike?
No. The only sanctioning body was New Berlin police that arrested me 13 times.
13 times?
13 times.
What's an arrest mean? What is, they took you to jail, you got a ticket, your mom had to come get you?
A couple times I went to the hospital with State Patrol because when I seen them, I locked up the front brake on his rough black Widow and crashed, and apparently he said I was knocked out, which I don't think I was, but he rushed me to Waukesha Memorial Hospital, and then I took him to court and proved to the judge that he said I never did anything wrong. He had me sign the ticket saying that I wasn't on the road, that I was in the ditch.
What was the ticket for then?
Illegal operation of a unlicensed motor vehicle, and then with the mini bike I still own today, my original one from 1968. That one I was to court 13 times, and the judge finally.
You took every one of these to jury trial?
No, not jury, but in front of a judge, and the judge finally said, apparently you don't learn your lesson, and so. I'm suspending your license when you turn 16. So when I turned 16, I was eligible to get my license. It was suspended. So and of course I never listened to that. Anyways, I still drove. At 14. I was riding that Harley chopper around and getting chased by the cops, and I ditched him behind a hometown gas station on College Avenue and Martin Road in the weeds, and I laid down behind it until the cops went by, and then laid there for quite a while because I didn't know if they were lurking.
That's best. Right.
So I always felt like I got away with something. My whole life, I always got away with something, and and even if I got in trouble, it was.
Are you saying that getting away with something is satisfying to you?
I don't know if I ever thought of it that way, but
it is to me.
It is satisfying because it's I beat the system.
Yeah.
I beat the system, and I just never ever rolled with any guidelines. I just thought they were meant for other people.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't make any sense to me. I just let me be free.
When you were going back to being self-employed, so what was the job? To explain this to me, in 101, what service did you provide? What was the business?
You were restoring antiques. Sorry.
I was having the antiques, and a lot of these antique bikes, I'm working on this 1914 right now for.
So people from around the United States were sending you their antique bikes?
No,
what was
not
the
yet.
scene
Not
like?
yet. I was restoring. One of the examples is I was restoring a 1913 Harley Twin for myself.
But getting paid. So where's the income? You know what I mean?
Okay, I was still working at the machine shop, and I'm restoring this bike for myself. And I had to make a set of handlebars, and I had to make a set of gas tanks and a toolbox, all out of sheet metal. And I'm a
There's
perfectionist.
no internet. There's
No. And so,
eBay.
if you're going to make one, you might as well make 6. And then I would take it to like the Davenport Antique Motorcycle Club swap meet, and you start selling them, and then people see the quality that you provide, and then they're like, well, hey, can you make this for me? And can you rebuild my engine? And I started to get a reputation in the Antique Motorcycle Club of America as being a high quality, award-winning fabricator, and so it just blossomed from there. And then I was starting. The owner of the company saw that I knew that I was making more money outside, doing this on the side than I was working for them, and he knew it was coming. And I finally gave him a resignation letter for 60 days.
That felt good.
It did.
You beat the system.
Yeah. I was finally able to walk. Well,
You
and
gotta
another,
make something.
there was a welding shop just up the road from the Fickow Welding, and Mr. Fickow kept on asking me every time he saw me. He says, "I want to know one thing, Mike." He says, "When are you going to stop making money for other people and start making money for yourself?" and there was other people that were encouraging, because it's kind of a big move to quit
Yeah. Back then, you
a guaranteed paycheck every
a
week.
pension and insurance and
Yep.
everything that came with it.
Yep. Well, my wife, she worked at GE Medical, and it was kind of like the red carpet, as far as insurance goes,
Sure.
and just doing, even if I didn't make a dime, we had our house paid off, all
Sure.
those things. We had our goals, so I pulled a plug, and but I started letting people know that I was going full time. So the day that I went down into my shop for the first time, full time, I had a full list of things,
Yeah,
jobs,
Jobs to do.
nothing even changed.
Just scheduled. No,
You know,
no.
Yeah,
Beat didn't
the
skip,
open
right.
sign was on for a long time, because I worked a part-time job, worked this part-time, and then worked a full-time job. So when I quit, I just went full-time.
Is the sign still on? You still producing?
Yeah, probably more busy now than I have been in years.
What kind of stuff were you doing then? Like those initial jobs that.
Doing full restorations on motorcycles, fabricating gas tanks, handlebars, we still kind of handle them, made the complete rear coaster brake rear hubs, made hundreds and hundreds of those over the years. And our product line has always changed, because the hobby will only support a certain amount.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you might do a run of 100, and then when you sell out of those, it might take you a couple of years to settle the last 10. But I always call that free money, because it's already done on the shelf, and you just take one off the shelf and throw it in a box. And so it evolved, and I don't do complete bikes anymore for other people, but I build a lot of engines, a lot. And a lot of race engines,
Is that part of it? I was going to ask, is that part new, the racing thing, or was it always popular when you first were getting started, like in the 90s?
In the 90s, I was one of
Like people
the
racing
few
bikes?
trusted people, because my passion for racing and racing motorcycles led me to wealthy individuals that had very exotic racing machines. And we're talking, 8-valve Harleys, 8-valve Indians, Super X factory hill climb engines.
And you know that precision high-end speed? Do you know what I mean?
What was that?
Like you know how to produce a high engine or high speed motor.
Yes.
You know, right? How to fine tune it to that highest.
And like I said, I was very thankful that I was a trusted and reputable builder, that people would send me engines from all over the world, crated up, and they would show up at my door, and there might only be a handful in existence, whether it be a Cyclone or factory Harley hill climb engines, came from Australia. Like I said, I've done work for every major continent,
Bold statement.
And the more that you did it, the more work would come in,
and I never advertised.
The more access to parts you would find.
Yep, and never advertised. It was all word of mouth, and my accountant always said, raise your rates and be more selective.
And you followed his advice?
Yeah, her advice. And
Be careful.
Yep.
it was, they. No, I've always, I've never had a shortage of work, ever. Every time I think things are getting slow, the phone rings or somebody shows up. I got a 1912 belt drive Indian, which is kind of a rare bird, because Indian was in the teens was always the chain drive motorcycle, and the guy's got a 1912 belt drive single, and the only reason that Indian offered a belt drive is because the entire industry, all the other manufacturers offered a belt drive, and there were some that were familiar with how to ride a belt drive motorcycle. So, there must have been customers that were inquiring enough that they finally offered one. And it didn't last long. I think it may have been only available in 1912.
Wow. And those are leather belts?
Yeah, leather belts.
And can you still, how are those things? How do you find a leather belt?
There's a company on the north side of Milwaukee that makes them for me.
Get out.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Is it like a special thickness and kind of leather?
Well, it is a double ply.
Okay.
And when they cut the hides and glue them together, they just like wood, leather's got a grain, and they glue them in opposing directions, so it doesn't really stretch. So
Okay.
yeah.
But they're not sewn together, just glued together?
They're glued, and the endless belts are. There's a machine that slices the leather horizontally, but at a diagonally over about a 6-inch length. It's called skiving, and so your glue joint is over a 5 to 6 inch. So that's how the joint is very strong.
Okay, so it's not just like this. It's
right,
okay.
right, and it's clamped and glued and cured and yeah. So you have your endless belt. But there was manufacturers back then that offered leather belts that had a joint where it was all these little loop wires on each end, and then you'd slide a pin through it.
Really?
Yeah. So when it did stretch a little bit, you could take this thing apart and cut a little bit off and move it in.
Really?
And put your pin back in.
That's wild.
Yeah, there was a lot of really crazy primitive methods back, around the turn of the century into the teens.
That's cool.
Let's take that history that you've already shared with us and bring it to right now. In your opinion, in your vision, and what you see, Trog, Mama Tried, what's going on? Tell me.
Yeah, it seemed that your face is all over the damn place these days. Are you cool with that?
I am, because
I saw you
I'm
wear sunglasses. You had Ray-Bans on or something the other day.
yeah. Yeah.
It's awesome.
Cool
Yeah.
guy, Mike.
I'm switching. No, I've been down to Loretta Lynn's, been out to Trog.
But what's going on? Are we in a surgence? How do you see where we are in history
Yeah,
with
as it
motorcycles?
compares to
With custom
back
motorcycling.
days.
With custom, I think it's growing. With vintage racing, I've seen an explosion in that with Flat Out Friday, Sons of Speed, local tracks saying, hey, if you get 5-6 of you guys tank shifters together, we'll run a class for you. And so it's gaining in popularity. People love to see the old bikes run. I was just telling somebody yesterday, I think it was, how crazy like the 80cc bikes, the 2-stroke 80cc's like out at Astelin, those kids are flying on those things.
Yeah.
And actually, I know for a fact if we went out there with our WRs, they would kick our ass. I mean, those guys really, really fly.
Yeah.
And it's so awesome to watch that stuff. And you see all those same classes in Flat Out Friday. From the PW50s all the way up through the Honda 450s, or in the Hooligans, or the classic twins. So
not even racing. What about custom motorcycling? Where does Mama Tried fit in this timeline, in history? When you go to Mama Tried and you see a 23-year-old guy with tattooed face on a Sportster, do you feel like he's riding on your coattails that he doesn't deserve, or are you excited about the energy of the community?
no, I'll tell you in that regard, I don't feel they're riding on anyone's shirt tails. The creativity I see with some of the young builders, I can't think of his name right now. He's just on Instagram. Brock, not Brock Bridges.
Give me a region, like a region of the United States.
He's in Ohio.
Okay.
You know who he is.
Anyway.
Yeah, he is. I met him down at Bill Dodge's Moto Invitational show, and he's just this awesome bike builder, and he's so stoked because he just mentioned he'd love to come up to my shop sometime, and I just messaged him the other day that, it's like, come on up, you're more than welcome. And because we have a lot of the same interests. I mean, he likes old stuff too.
He's a young guy though, is that what you're saying?
Yes. Yeah, he's probably in his late 20s, early 30s. And
Does that excitement from a young kid or young dude like refill your bucket?
absolutely. Because what's happening is I'm realizing that, this is the time that I pass on all the things that I've learned from other people.
Yeah.
Like when I got into the Antique Motorcycle Club of America when I was 19 years old, there were guys that I thought were old, which I realize now they were probably like 45. And, not once did they ever say, I'm too busy, or go ask somebody else. They took me under their wing and just nurtured me. And so, that's what I'm doing today. And I get a lot of fulfillment out of it, mentoring young guys and letting, like Johnny's 99 Customs. I had him, he'd been following me and he's been a fan, and I got to meet him in person down at the Cycle Showcase down in St. Louis. And I had him sit on both my race bikes, the Flexi sidecar rig and the 1927 Harley 8 valve, and he was just blown away. And actually down in at Warren Lane's custom bike show down at the let's see, what was that?
You're still living like a rock star.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
all the
putting
shows.
miles on
and all
that.
the things.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I was at a motorcycle show there, and Johnny got to sit on a couple of my bikes down there, and he just thought he didn't feel like he was worthy. He said, and he always he said he felt funny wanting to talk to me because he always thought I was too busy. I said, dude, I love talking to the younger guys and sharing anything and everything.
Yeah, that's always been apparent, man. You've helped me out a bunch, and I appreciate that. And it's just cool to see, like the only thing you're really gonna learn from is folks that have been through it and can share their errors and trials and tribulations and kind of shortcut it or cheat code it, however you want to call it.
Right.
It's when I'm older. Maybe I'm already kind of fucking old. I'm almost 45.
Yeah.
I'm
I
trying
got
to
20
share.
on you, dude.
If anybody wants to learn, I try to teach. As much as I can. There's no secrets. You want to get out there and do it, get after it. And I'll try to help you the most I can.
Yeah.
Or best I can.
No, I really had an opportunity. I've been, invited to a lot of different shows, and and embracing it. And I see the growth in the custom bike building. I'll be honest that I see some things, I scratch my head, but I have to realize that just because I did something one way,
'Cause it's
or
expanding, not linear. It's expanding
yes,
three-dimensionally.
yes.
Mhm.
And
with stereo
and everybody
systems.
wants to be their own individual,
Sure.
and have some uniqueness to their bike build, and so you have to keep that, or I have to keep that in the forefront of my
I
mind.
think everybody does. That's
Yeah.
that's a really
And
important part.
Try to be open-minded to it because even though it might not be a bike that I would build, I know that their heart and soul, just like mine, went into every build.
Sure.
And every part that they built for that. And and with today's technology, in some ways has made things a little easier. Because of 3D printing and CNC machining, the creativity can even be broadened.
Yeah.
Back in the 70s, late 60s, early 70s, you had a couple catalogs, and you could buy a sissy bar, a gas tank, and a twisted Springer front end, and there wasn't a lot to choose from. So you really had to be hammering out everything yourself.
Yeah.
And there's guys doing it today. It's just there are wider variety of tools available today.
And you can watch YouTube videos and learn how to do stuff.
Yeah.
And there's a lot.
Yeah,
of
I mean, I watch it to learn how to set the clock on my 2013 Street Glide, because
There's this
they don't
thing
come
called
with
the internet.
they don't come with an owner's manual anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Mike, I wanted to circle back about the Plexi Flyer.
Yeah.
Now, that's the first time that I met you through John Allman. This was probably like 1995, 96.
Had to have been 96 because that's when I got that.
Oh,
But
really? Okay.
yeah.
So he brought me out there to see it. And what's the backstory? I forgot all about it. At the time, I wasn't really a Harley person, so I understood the significance of what it was I was looking at, but I think it's a really rare bike.
Yes.
But anyway, you talk about it.
Well, I'll start out with this. I just came back from a trip down through Tennessee and North Carolina because Matt Waxler with Wheels Teutron Museum uncovered in some scrapbooks new and very exciting history about the Flexi.
Really?
Here we always thought that it was a 1929 because it has a 29 factory works race engine in it. And all the history, the verbal history, everything that all the Harley dealers that owned it, passed down through the years have led us to believe that that's the era that it was in. Well, we just found documented pictures of it,
Really?
not only much earlier, from the early 20s, but with a factory paid wrecking crew race member racing it,
Really?
Ralph Hepburn. And his national number was number 4, and now we're understanding why the number 4 was painted on it
Okay.
right from the factory,
Okay.
since we have an original factory photo of it sitting outside the loading docks
Really?
with the number 4 and the graphics on it.
No way.
So this was one of the wrecking crews, the original wrecking crews that was disbanded at the end of the 1921 racing season. And I found that I found in 1922 American Motorcyclist and Bicyclist magazine that it's a full-page article, not a copy. This is right out of the magazine, that Harley-Davidson announces the disbandment of the wrecking crew, and that's dated January 5th of 1922. So the first week of January, they came out with this announcement that since they had swept the Syracuse event in October of 1921, and they won every event, you know, the 5 mile, the 10 mile, 25, 50, and so on. And Fred Ludlow had won all of those, and I have all of Freddie Ludlow's gold and silver racing medals
No way.
from that event.
Of course.
You know, they didn't feel they needed to prove anything anymore to anybody. And the fact that it cost a lot of money to have a factory-backed race team was also a factor in their decision to disband it. But later in the article, it says, I suppose you're wondering what is going to happen to all of these very high-powered, fast racing machines. And they gave 4 of the wrecking crew names. They said, have purchased these motorcycles. So that's the link of how they got outside of the factory.
Okay.
A lot of times, you know, factory race machines, they still do it today, gets destroyed, you know, because of liability. They don't want to put them out into the public. And so here we have a picture of Ralph Hepburn on the Flexi with number 4, and his national number is number 4, and it's dated September 15th, 1924.
Wow.
And now that there was no reason for us to look in the early 20s, but now that we understand that it's from that era, we look back at the factory-built Class A racing machines for the wrecking crew. The chassis are identical to the Flexi sidecar rig.
Really?
And today, there's only 2 of those chassis known in the world, and one we don't know where it is any longer because it was stolen by gunpoint from the owner out of Beverly Hills.
No way.
Yeah, a number of years ago. Jeff Gilbert's machine was stolen right out. Him and his wife were tied up at gunpoint and by some thugs and stole 2 of his motorcycles. One was
And you have the other one.
not of Jeff Gilbert's. Don't get
No,
you know,
no.
I have the other known chassis.
Sure, that's what I mean.
And it's unique. It's the only Class A factory race bikes that were built for the paid team that are like this. All the others are different.
So let me zoom in for those that might not understand. This Flexi sidecar, which I can't even describe verbally, I can only do it visually. Were other teams they were racing against flexing, or they were rigid?
Well, a little of both, but anybody that was going to be in the real heat of it had a flexi sidecar rig, and those sidecars were built by the Flexible Company out of Loudonville, Ohio.
Oh, really?
And the whole idea behind it was, for any of you out there that have ridden a motorcycle with a sidecar, it's rigid. And it's kind of strange going around corners, you got to kind of muscle the handlebars and stuff like that. And, a flexi, you ride it like a solo motorcycle. As you go around a corner, you lean the bike just like you would if it were solo. And the sidecar wheel not only leans with it, but it's got camber built in where it also turns.
Sure.
So, it's not a
dead weight.
well,
It's
yeah, and
it's
it
not
doesn't
just-
push. It doesn't push the wheel either. And so these flexi sidecar rigs, they had, riders in them, or what is referred as monkeys in sidecar racing, and that went on through the end of the 1925 racing season, and too many monkeys were getting killed. And
I think the preferred nomenclature is passenger, Mike.
Oh.
These days, just
they
But keep going. Yeah, exactly.
or them.
No, even when I was racing sidecars, it was somehow derogatory to.
Really?
Yeah, and some people were like, "Who gives a shit?"
Yeah.
We didn't give a shit.
Yeah.
But some people did.
All right.
Anyway,
Passengers.
Anyway.
Passengers were banned at the end of the 1925 racing season because too many were getting killed or maimed tremendously
Unfortunate.
because the rider would fall off and tumble, but here you got this guy stuffed in this little built-in coffin, and he gets wadded up in the crash and has no way to bail. So they were outlawed, and so everyone was required. We found a document down in Wheels Through Time where each rider was required to carry a 132-pound ballast.
Really?
Yeah, sandbag.
Huh.
We always were told it was like 125 pounds, but it was actually in print 132 pounds.
132 pounds.
Yeah. So represented
That's what I meant.
dead weight.
I gotta go.
Let me hang on. I got you. You were speaking of antique motorcycles. You were just in Trog, and then it was canceled because of a hurricane.
Yeah.
Tell us about that real quick.
Well, we loaded a whole, like 17 of us up in this Mercedes van. We loaded a box truck up with all our racing motorcycles and film crew and everything, and we headed east to do Trog. And we get out there, and even before we got out there, we saw that there's a 100% chance of rain on Saturday and high wind warnings, and it wasn't looking good.
No.
And also Mel had told us that high tide was not in our favor either, so to get out there as early as possible. And it just wasn't good right from the get-go.
Sure, I felt for Mel on that.
Yeah,
That's a rough day.
and then by the time we did get down there, the mayor was on the beach telling everybody it was mandatory,
Evacuation.
banning everyone from being on the beach.
Shelter in place.
And so, the
Do you think
whole...
do you think that was inappropriate? Do you think like, oh, we could have ran the event?
They were running early Saturday.
Oh, so they did run a little bit.
They ran a little bit, and but yeah, everything was canceled because of high wind warning. It wasn't just our event; all outdoor events of Wildwood, which I don't know if they, people grilling outside, were banned or what, because
what else was happening? in Wildwood
yeah,
that weekend?
there was nothing happening
Yeah.
in Wildwood. But everything was canceled, so it was kind of a bummer, and it was raining heavy and stuff like that. But
Well, and it's like it's not just the wind's gonna knock a motorcycle going down
But
on
actually,
the beach, which could happen, but it's all the other stuff. It's the tents and the people and all
yeah.
the crews. And
But I
all
will
the
say,
infrastructure.
you know, again, because none of our group that went out there likes rules. Even though we were banned from the beach, who cares what they say?
Yeah.
So Saturday afternoon, we end up going out there anyways, and on the north end, and because there was this whole deal from Milwaukee all the way out there was a documentary was being made, so we wanted to get some film footage, and so we took some WRs and a knucklehead bobber out on the beach and tore it up and.
Cool.
And it was windy.
Yeah.
It was windy. It was like you could hardly stand. It was like 55 and up mile an hour sustained winds.
Coming off of the water.
Right off the water. Yeah, and it was even hard because I mean you were standing there for like some still photos, and your glasses it was just ocean spray.
Wow.
Everything was getting covered, and we were on an area of the beach that wasn't groomed at all, so it wasn't the easiest to ride, but we still had fun. I fell over because I always push it to the limit. You know, I only have one speed.
Well, pushing it to the limit, that's where we're at right now with this podcast. Let's wrap it up, Mr. Lange. Why don't you give Scott and Warren a little bit of advice? You talked about advice and your years of experience. What do they need to know for Mama Tried?
Well, I'll tell you, Mama Tried, when it first started, 10 years ago?
Almost.
Almost, okay. I got invited to the first one, and I've been to all of them since. It has been a continual growth, and it filled such of a void in Milwaukee. There was nothing happening in winter in Milwaukee, and I remember that first Mama Tried. I mean, it was kind of fly by the seat of her pants. I mean,
Still is.
but as far as code goes, I mean, there was 200 miles of extension cords and lights and nests of plugged in
One working toilet.
and pallets of beer and homemade bars, and just people were standing on a staircase, because had to wait for people to leave before more could come in, and it was crazy. But it was awesome. It was raw. It was grassroots. It was, you were in the moment.
We missed those days.
Yeah, and even the ones followed afterwards were still really pretty low key, pretty grassroots.
Grassroots. So what's the advice? What do they need to know to keep?
Well, keep it going. I mean, I actually no knock on you guys. I preferred
Sure, everybody does.
the warehouse
Sure.
buildings, but that has to be a difficult thing to find a building and then to come in and pull off what you guys pull off.
Yeah.
The rave, it's a great venue. It's just it misses the old day pizzazz.
I know, we miss it too.
Yeah.
We were a victim of our own success.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, us and a lot of other people kind of.
And I still remember from the very first one, Warren said to me, he says, "Mike, we want to keep this to like 25 bikes, grassroots. If you ever see it getting out of hand, I want you to tell me."
Okay, you're telling them right now? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm telling them now. I never did tell them, but I saw it getting out of hand. But it's good. It's good. I mean, what it brings to Milwaukee and what Flat Out Friday brings to Milwaukee is incredible. I mean, there's people that come from all over the country, to the event. And there's been other events that I believe were born out of it because there was nothing like this really going on
Sure.
anywhere in the country. And, to see it grow and see more opportunities. There are more opportunities now to go and get wild with your flat track bike and boonie bikes and just raw stupidity and have fun in the chopper scene and the motorcycle scene in general. Is because out of the 70s and when things got maybe a little too uniformed or things got tamed down, in the 80s. And so to see some of this off the cuff madness come back, I love it. I love it. It warms my heart.
Okay.
Well, we weren't fishing. We were just. But thanks, Mike. I really appreciate it. It was great to have you from the first one. I think I'm not going into a soliloquy here, but I think the reason that we were successful from the beginning was because guys like you just said yes when we asked. Would you bring one of your favorite bikes, and everyone said yes. So we were lucky that way. So we appreciate that.
Yeah.
Really.
Thank
Well,
you.
and I've always appreciated to be a part of it. I'm lucky. I'm only 25 miles from the venue, so it's when COVID hit, I remember that we had just dropped our bikes off, and 10 minutes later, after I got home, I get a message from Warren saying that it's canceled. I only had a half-hour drive.
Yeah.
Where people
Yeah.
were from Indonesia that year,
Yes.
and all over the country. So, it's unfortunate what happened to this country in general. And still, there's no more flu.
We're still reeling.
I had the flu last year, and I was loading my bikes up last year in December, and on Sunday my throat was scratchy, and I thought it was just because I was yakking all weekend. And Monday I knew there was something not right, and by Tuesday I was on the couch and had tested for COVID twice, and it was negative. And I went to my doctor and I said, I have the flu. He goes, no, you have COVID. I said, no, I have the flu. And he goes, no, you have COVID. And I says, what? Doesn't the cold or the flu exist anymore? And I think they get paid every time they diagnose.
Michael Lange will finally, buck that system. Don't tell me what I have.
Yeah, don't tell me.
Seriously, I gotta go. I'm
All right. Well, Michael Lange,
All right, Mike.
Mama Tried Flat Out Friday podcast number 16,
Yeah,
19.
All right.
19.
14.
19? All right.
32.
anytime.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mike.